Hey, welcome back, folks, to Max Nave Horsemanship again. And today we are going to talk about the Wade Tree saddle. Now, for those of you in the English discipline, if you use English saddles, you may have not even ever heard of a Wade Tree. And, well, it probably doesn't really much matter to you, so if you really don't want to, you don't have to watch this one. But hey, watch it anyhow. It's good trivia. Because we're going to delve into a little bit about the Wade Tree saddle. What is it, and do you really even need one? Well, in the process of talking about the Wade Tree saddle, we would be horribly amiss if we didn't talk a little bit about what exactly is a Wade Tree and, well, a little bit about the history. Now, some of you that know this stuff better than me, and I'm sure there are a few that have time to research this stuff, you might correct me on a few facts, but let's go back in history and talk about what a Wade Tree is, the origin of it. And it actually goes way, way back to the late 1800s. There was a gentleman by the name of Aaron Wade, and he did a lot of roping and spent many, many hours in the saddle. And he noticed some deficiencies in the design of most of the saddles at the time. And he wanted something that suited his needs a little bit better. And, well, as you can see behind me, we got a roping saddle, because that's what he did a lot of, was roping. And this one might, I say might, because we don't know much about this particular model. I've been trying to find information on it. And just looking it over, though, it's clearly a roping saddle. And it fits my horse very well. And it fits me quite well. And it's obviously made of good quality materials. It's nice and thick. It's well put together. This is a very good saddle. And this brand has been around since, by this name, since about 1940. And the company that they started off with actually existed for, well, just past the turn of the 19th century. Had a couple different names, but I won't get into that because that's not what we're really into. Although we do suspect maybe this thing has a few of the features of a Wade Tree. But we'll get into that and explain to you what is a Wade Tree, and do you even need one? Because, well, like I said, if you're riding in English saddles, you've probably never even heard of a Wade Tree. But if you're riding in Western saddles, it's almost the holy grail of saddles. But do you really need one? Well, honestly, unless you're roping, no, you don't, because the Wade Tree saddle is in fact a roping saddle. That's its design and purpose, because, well, Aaron Wade did a lot of roping, and so he decided that he wanted something that was a little bit better at the job. But after many, many years of riding in that thing, he passed away, and somewhere around 1930, his son pulls this old worn-out saddle out, and he discovers that it actually fits his own horses quite well. So he decided to take it in, and oh, by the way, the first generation that Aaron Wade had made, there is actually, we don't even know who made it. The name of the saddle maker that made that one is unknown to the best of my knowledge. And the research I've done, in fact, one article that I've read, it even said, we don't know and never will. Well. But in 1930, his son pulled it out and discovered he liked the saddle. He thought there was a lot of good features. But, it was pretty much worn out by then, because let's face it, it had already been around for quite a few years and seen lots of use. But he thought there was something to it, so he decided to take it in and said, hey, look, I want you to duplicate the saddle, but we're going to make a few little tweaks to it, just to personalize it to his liking. Now, well, already, the very first incarnation is already version 2, back in 1930. That is already the second version. And, well, before I go any further with my story, I'm going to tell you that saying that you got a Wade Tree saddle is kind of like saying you got an SUV. It's that vague, because the Wade Tree saddles, a lot of people make them these days and call them a Wade, and some of them aren't even though that's what they call them. But there can be so many different variations on them that it's, kind of like saying I got an SUV. Well, does it have an automatic or a manual transmission? What size engine? How many people does it carry? What features does it have? It's pretty vague, saying you got a Wade Tree. But what is a Wade Tree? Well, I'll get into that in a minute. we'll continue on with the history of it though. So Aaron's son had version 2 already, back in 1930 made, with his own little tweaks to it, to modify the design. Now, a lot of the features of the Wade had to do with the fork. Well, the entire saddle actually he had designed to meet his needs, but what actually makes a Wade tree saddle is not the entire saddle, but the tree, and more specifically these days now, the fork alone, which is just this part here, the horn and this part here, going down to the bars. That's what they call the fork, and that is the part that makes a Wade tree saddle. But I'll explain what that is in a second, because it didn't stop with version 2. Oh yeah, there was another version after that, because there was a couple of very, very well-known horsemen by the name of Tom Dorrance and Ray Hunt, who kind of made the Wade tree saddle famous by using them. And somewhere around 1960, I believe it was, Ray Hunt actually went to a saddle maker and said he wanted his own version of the Wade tree saddle made. And well, his buddy Tom liked it so much he used it as well. So between the two of them, they actually made that saddle famous. But then, 1960, we're already on version 3, because Ray took it in, and I can't remember what the fellow's name was, but it was something like Dale, because the saddle, that version, the Ray Hunt version, actually had several names. One was the Ray Dale, or Dale Ray, I can't remember. Well, they combined the names of the two guys that created it, which was the saddle maker, which I can't even remember if it was his first or last name that was Dale, and Ray Hunt. So, but that one actually was the one that really gained popularity of the Wade tree saddle. And well, since then, it's kind of gotten a lot more vague and a lot more muddy. And there are even people out there calling their saddles Wade tree saddles, and in fact they're not. And one of the things I'm going to talk about is some of the features of a Wade tree saddle. What is a Wade tree saddle? What makes a Wade tree saddle? Now, exactly what is a Wade tree saddle? Well, as I said, it's not the saddle itself, it's not the entire saddle, although it is in fact a roping saddle, which is one of the reasons we got this one in front of us to talk about, because this is a roping saddle. And you see it's even got a split string on it to hold your lariat up there, all nice and handy, and yet it still has 2 additional saddle strings on it up there, as well as more back here, and on this side as well. Anyhow, but we won't get into that, that doesn't matter. One of the things that you'll notice, it is got a much larger horn on it. That is one of the notable characteristics of a roping saddle. Now, the Wade tree saddle, it has what is called a swell fork. No, that's wrong. It's a slick fork. That's it. This is called a slick fork on a Wade tree saddle. And the Wade tree saddle, one of the unique features of it is that this part here, the fork and the horn, are all one piece. And it's actually grafted out of one piece of laminated wood. They tend to be a lot thicker this direction. The horn, of course, is bigger because it's a roping saddle, and it is actually all one piece. Now, on this one, because it's all covered with leather, you can't even tell how many pieces it is. Judging by the height of it, I'm thinking maybe not. It might not be a Wade tree because of the height, because that is one of the features of the Wade tree, is the fork, because of the characteristic of it, because it's the horn and the fork are all one piece, they can actually make the whole thing a little bit lower down, which means when you're roping, there's going to be less force pulling side to side, forward, backward, whichever direction, depending on which way you're roping, which makes them a better saddle for roping. It's one of the features. In fact, that is the prime feature these days, is simply the fork. It's a slick fork with a horn that is all one piece. The fork and the horn are one piece. If you ever find a saddle with a metal horn, which occasionally they have, it is definitely not a Wade tree saddle, even though some people actually call them that, and will try to sell them to you as that. But it's really hard to tell. Like I said, once it's all covered up with leather and everything, you really can't tell. And while the width of the gullet in there, it's actually very difficult, almost impossible to measure on the slick fork because of the shape of it. How far down can drastically change the dimensions, and they make them in anywhere from, oh, what is it now, 6 up to 10 inch, which is almost unheard of. But like I said in another video, one of the things about gullet width you got to take into consideration is those measurements are based on a raw tree that has no leather, no flocking on it, nothing that would change the dimension. Once you get all that extra stuff on there underneath, you've altered the dimension by quite a bit, and it may actually measure, if you take a tape measure to it, it may come up quite a bit shorter. Now, wade tree saddles. Obviously, they have their advantages because of the nature of them. They still allow enough room in there for the withers, but at the same time, the fork is lower, the horn itself is lower, and it is much more robust because it's an integral part of the wood of the fork. But because it is, the fork itself can be a little bit thinner and therefore lower. And well, all in all, that just makes for a better saddle, even if you're not roping. So, question is, do you need a wade tree saddle? Well, you probably don't need one, but can you use one? Well, not unlike myself, this particular saddle is a roping saddle. I'm probably never going to do any roping, but you know what? It fits my horse extraordinarily well, and it is probably the most comfortable saddle I've ever sat in. So, do I need a roping saddle? No. But is it going to hurt me to have one? No, not one little bit. In fact, I really like the quality and fit of this saddle, both its fit on the horse, the fit on me, the quality of the manufacturer, everything about it. There really isn't a downside to this saddle as far as I am concerned. It's a reputable manufacturer that is still to this day in business, although rumor has it that the more recently made ones are not as good a quality as some of the older ones. The older ones prior to, I believe it's 1974, are quite coveted in this manufacturer. This one is probably around 1980, and it's in a vague area where after the original owner passed away, but before the company actually changed hands, and most people consider the quality to have gone downhill. So as far as I can tell, looking it over, it's still a pretty decent quality, and it is a roping saddle, and even though I'm probably never going to rope, I like it, and I'm going to keep it and make use of it. I'm going to enjoy it. Do I need a roping saddle? Well, that kind of goes right back to, do you need a wade tree saddle? No, you don't need one, but can you benefit one? Well, if it's made to the quality of the original wades, probably nothing wrong with having one, but don't be fooled by just the name because, like I said, the term wade can be very vague, and it can mean about as much as saying I have an SUV. It can be a very vague term, but look for a robust horn, a lower, wider fork, and well, the important stuff is, does it fit your horse well and does it fit you well? That's what really matters. And you'll also notice one of the things, because they make them a little more robust, the fork is actually a little thicker this direction. Some of them can measure up to 6 inches. Typically, they're about a 5-inch fork, and that's one of the things that you'll notice. This one, because of the height of the horn and that, I suspect it might not be a wade. But still a pretty darn good saddle, and I'm not complaining one little bit about it. I'm happy to have it. So, what is a wade tree saddle? Well, as I said, be careful. Don't be, it doesn't really mean much about the seat. You can put a good or a bad seat on a wade fork because it's actually, this is the only part that's truly wade anymore, is the fork and horn. And it's because the horn and fork are one piece. That's what makes it a wade. The finish and fit and the quality of the manufacturer and its fit on the horse, the fit on you, that can be hit and miss and can be good or bad. Just because somebody says it's a wade doesn't mean you should run out and buy it. But just like I said, the history goes back a long ways, And to this day, we're already probably on version 4, maybe 5, maybe 6, I don't know, depends on the manufacturer. So what made the original Wade tree saddle a good thing might not even exist in what you're going to buy. So be careful, just because somebody throws that name at you that many people consider to be a very coveted thing. Well, might not mean much. There you go. Wade tree saddles, what are they? A little bit about the history, and I do mean a little. I'm sure if you do some research on your own, you can find a lot more, but all the articles that I read kind of all put it together. The kind of what I was already thinking is that it might not mean as much as a lot of people think it does. So, do you need one? Well, maybe not. Can you benefit from one? Maybe, maybe not. Is there anything wrong with having one even if you don't do roping? Nope. You can enjoy it. There you go. Have a good day, folks.